Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Courtney Ryan, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about what men should do on a first date, but not just my opinion, according to psychology. You guys have been loving when I do these psychology, science-backed videos, and I really like sharing research with you and data and different statistics. I think it's interesting to see the why behind things instead of just saying you should do this or what to do. It's interesting and helpful, I think, to get the reasoning behind it. So let's get into it. All right, so I found this article and it says, according to Match's 2018 Singles in America survey of over 5,000 singles across the country ages 18 to 70 and of all ethnicities and sexual orientations, the most important thing single women are looking for on a first date isn't a surprise bouquet of flowers, although that would be nice, but a feeling, comfort. Of the women surveyed, 79% said they most care about feeling comfortable on a first date, even above feeling happy, which was 35%, and liked by the guy, which was 27%. So 79% of the women surveyed said that they would want to feel comfortable. That's the number one thing they look for on a first date, is to feel comfortable on the date. Why? I think because that signals, oh, I'm comfortable around this guy. We have a connection. He's maybe charismatic and, is really good at keeping the conversation going and making me feel comfortable and at ease on the date. I know from personal experience, I don't like to feel anxious or stressed, and a first date is definitely a situation that is a bit anxiety and stress inducing, especially if you are an introvert or you're a little bit shy, or even if you're not. I think, when you're going to something that you care about or something that's important to you, say your first day of school or a job interview or a first date in this case, you feel a little bit nervous, and I think it's very normal to feel that way. But when you're with someone who then can put you at ease and make you feel comfortable and safe and secure, wink, wink, you never heard that before, during situations that might be, a little bit stressful or make you anxious, that's a good sign in someone that you're seeing. So let's continue. If you're relying on the basic psychological spectrum, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, feeling safe is a requirement before one can feel loved or needed. According to Maslow, humans must always feel safe and secure first before their emotions are able to truly develop. So what most women are realizing is that they can't tell if they feel attracted or drawn to a date if they don't feel comfortable first. Of course, first date nerves are inevitable, as I mentioned, but once those wear off, it's so important to feel comfortable and relaxed because that will allow the two of you to really make a connection. So no surprise here, as a woman, and I can really speak from my own personal experience on this, this was, looking back in hindsight, one of the most important things, if not the most important thing to me also. So I can imagine that women across the board tend to probably feel this way, especially when you look at it as, humans need to feel safe and secure before they're able to kind of let their guard down or make a connection with you. If someone is going into a date and you're making things even more stressful or anxious, they're not going to be able to let their guard down and really get to know you or form a connection, because they're going to be high stress, high anxiety, have their walls up, and not feel like they can really be themselves or be authentic and get to know you. So I know that make her feel comfortable is kind of a broad statement, and you're probably thinking, okay, I understand that, but how the heck do I make her feel comfortable? Like, what are the things I should be doing on a first date so that I can make my date feel more comfortable? I'm gonna go over that, don't you worry. The first thing I think is to be able to maintain a lively conversation. And I know for a lot of you, this is the area where you struggle the most. I've done countless videos about how to keep a conversation going or how to have better conversations, how to be a great conversationalist. So I've definitely done some videos about this already. If you're interested in checking those out, I will link them down below for you if you need a little bit of help in that department. And I do think being able to maintain this conversation and keep things flowing goes back to this men taking charge phenomenon and thing that women are just straight up attracted to, whether they think they are or not. I think a lot of women prefer a man who is able to keep a conversation going, who is able to make her feel safe and secure, who, can keep things going and moving and keep the conversation kind of flowing and direct that. So she doesn't like to feel like she's the one that's driving the entire conversation, or maybe she's the one that's asking you all the questions and you aren't asking her anything. I think it's really important to make sure that you are asking her questions and getting to know her as well, and make sure that you guys are equally sharing information. So one person should not be doing all the talking while the other person is just sitting there in silence or answering the questions with a one-word response, right? And I know this kind of depends a little bit on the person that you're seeing. Maybe you're seeing someone who is very shy and introverted, and it might take her a little bit to warm up to you and let her guard down and start to elaborate a little bit more, or ask you things, or give, more detailed answers. So that's something to definitely be looking out for. But also, you don't want to be on a date with someone who is just a doorknob, right? You feel like you're talking to a brick wall. They aren't giving you anything. They aren't, contributing any substance to the conversation. So I don't want to make it seem like men need to be the only one doing this, because I think it's absolutely a two-way street. A conversation involves two people, hopefully, unless you're just talking to yourself, which I wouldn't recommend doing on a first date. So just something to keep in mind. It is a two-way street, but I do think it is helpful when a man takes initiative and is a little bit more direct and can, again, direct a conversation and keep things flowing. And a really easy way that I mentioned in those conversation videos to make sure that you're doing this is by genuinely listening to what she is saying to you. I think a lot of the time as humans, when we're talking to another person, we think about what we're going to say next and what we're thinking and what we want to say. So instead of just sitting there and thinking about what you're going to say next and overthinking and being all in your own head, actually listen to what the other person is saying to you, and you'll find it much easier to elaborate and keep the conversation flowing and moving forward, because you'll actually genuinely be listening to them, and you'll be able to use that as something to move on from going forward. And don't be afraid to have, moments of silence. I think it's okay to not fill every single second with conversation. And if you need to think about something for a second or two before you say it, I think that's totally fine. I think a lot of us rush into saying something because we feel like we need to fill every void or every silent moment with words. And in reality, I think the conversation is a lot more meaningful and full of substance when you pause to think about what you want to say, or, just take a moment to gather your thoughts before you say it. And then I also found this article from Psychology Today that I wanted to share with all of you. I think there's a lot of really good info in here, so let's get into it. Gender differences are still prevalent in many early dating interactions. For example, research has shown that women are more selective than men when it comes to choosing dating partners. Many of the other differences observed between males and females during first dates are a result of sexual scripts. These scripts give people control over a situation as a result of enabling them to fall into pattern responses. These scripts often put men in a seat of relative authority during courtship. Again, what I mentioned about leading a conversation and being able to keep a conversation lively and flowing. Women's scripts are much more reactive. Example, evaluating the date, and men's much more proactive, example, making out or initiating sexual activity. Specifically, the research showed that men were typically the ones who planned the date, controlled the public domain, and initiated sexual contact. Females tended to be more concerned with the private domain, example, her appearance, and were required to come up with responses to a date's sexual initiations. Even though roles may well be changing, such sex differences still largely exist in the realm of first dates. I'm going to tell you more about how to make her feel comfortable too after I'm done reading through this, but I thought that this was super interesting. So it says, in a study I conducted with 390 participants focusing on interpreting behavior that typically occurs on the first date, gender differences were noted. The sample in this particular study was predominantly female, 75.4%, Caucasian, 61.8%, and between the ages of 18 and 24, 72.3%. Participants were given 30 statements detailing potential behaviors that their romantic partners might display on a first date. An example is, he or she hugs you when he or she meets you. Participants were told to rate each behavior on a 5-point Likert scale to elicit their perception of how attracted their potential partner was to them. Findings demonstrated that females were much more selective and potentially judgmental, no surprise there, about behaviors on a first date. Males didn't allow any behaviors to serve as a signal that their date was less attracted to them, whereas females read into many of their dates' behaviors as an indication of their attraction to them. So what were the positive signals? These are things that women view positively as you like them on a first date, that are typically received well, that you should probably do. Both men and women were more likely to report a connection if the woman talked about herself during the course of the date. Also, regarding first date conversation, women, to a greater extent than men, wanted their date to create and maintain a lively conversation. This may suggest that many females expect the male to take charge during a date, as I mentioned. In line with this viewpoint, women also felt when a man paid for the date, it was a signal that he was attracted to her. And I've told you this many times before, I think it is a gentlemanly thing to do to pay for the date. If you don't want to spend a lot of money, that's totally fine. Go somewhere free or go somewhere that is very inexpensive. You don't have to spend a lot of money on a date, but I do think, as studies show, it's received much better by women when you do pay for the date. Males appear to use behaviors that were sexual in nature, such as redirecting the conversation to the topic of sex, as a signal that their date was attracted to them. Females, on the other hand, were interested in their date's discussion of the future. Females also use physical contact, such as hugs and kisses at the end of a date, as indications that the date was attracted to them, a sign that men aren't the only ones who focus on the physical aspect. Now we're going to go into what the negative signals were. So women viewed many behaviors as negative signs of their hypothetical partner's attraction to them. They felt that when a date shook their hand, it indicated that he wasn't attracted to them. This was also the case if the date waved goodbye at the end of the evening, opting not to have any direct contact. Females also viewed a male's lack of pursuit negatively, such as if he didn't initiate contact after the date and only responded to her attempts. So that was really interesting. I do think, looking back from my own personal experiences, I always knew that a guy was really into me if he hugged me or kissed me at the end of a date. And upon arrival to the date, it makes her feel more comfortable a lot of the time. I mean, I guess this really does depend on the girl. I don't want to speak for everyone, but I always felt way more comfortable when the guy gave me a hug and made it a little bit more personal rather than shaking my hand. I think sometimes a handshake is a little bit intimidating. If you're not a hugger, you know, do what you want and kind of read the room and figure out what your date is going for. You might be able to tell when you're walking towards her, when you're meeting her, if she's a type to go in for a hug or a handshake. She might even start to do the motions as she's coming towards you, as she's nearing you. But I personally always think I received it better when the guy gave me a hug instead of a handshake, as mentioned here in the article. Very interesting. I'm going to link this article down below for you guys if you want to read through it on your own. But the main takeaways there were basically to do things that make her feel comfortable. Leading the conversation, giving her a hug, ending the date, you know, signaling to her that you're attracted to her or that you would like to see her again. They mentioned that females liked it when the male talked about the future, not saying that you should be on the first date talking about how you guys are going to get married. Absolutely do not do that. But I think at the end of the date, if you give her a hug and a kiss and you're like, I had a wonderful time with you, I would love to see you again, that talk about the future and initiating that you want to see her again is often received really well. And the last thing I want to talk about today that I think makes women feel a lot more comfortable is when you are comfortable yourself. And I know that's, again, a Captain Obvious thing to say, but I do think the more at ease you are, the more at ease people will feel around you. It's kind of like when a guy is really even-tempered and is cool as a cucumber, even in stressful situations. People feed off of that energy, and it makes the people around you feel at ease as well. So coming with that energy onto a date, I think, is really helpful. And just how do you do that? You have the abundance mindset versus the scarcity mindset. I've said this a million times. You're probably tired of hearing it, but I think when you go into a date thinking, you know, this is a great opportunity for me to figure out if I like this person. I'm going to get to know them. It's going to be fun, no stress, no pressure. You know, if this doesn't work out, something will work out with someone else. This is not the only girl for me in the whole wide world, and focus on that instead of, I have to get this girl to like me. She's the only one for me. I'm never going to go on another first date again. This is my only option. When you think like that and have this scarcity mindset, you put so much stress and pressure on yourself, and your date is going to be able to feel that, and it's not going to be received well. She's not going to like it, and it's not going to make her feel comfortable, I promise. So keeping this in mind, I know it can be tough if you're a little bit nervous, but really understanding that, you know, a first date is a fun time to see if you're compatible with someone, to use this as an opportunity to get to know someone and figure out if you like them instead of, I have to get this girl to like me. So guys, that is all I have for this video. If you liked it or found it helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel to be in the loop for when I release new content. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Would love for you guys to share your personal stories. What do you do on a first date that makes women feel more comfortable? What have you done in the past? Or share some things that have worked for you. Would love to share some tips with other guys down below. If you haven't already, be sure to follow me over on Instagram at Courtney Christine Ryan. I love connecting with all of you guys over on there as well. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.